Good evening, everyone. Myself Neha Singh, on behalf of Raigad IIT, extend my warm welcome to all the respected dignitaries from Central IIP, West Zone IIP, and Maha IIP. I also welcome our seniors, teachers, colleagues, and all the attendees for this meet. Today, on the eve of Doctors' Day, we are unfolding a unique initiative of general reading. Since today being the first scientific reading, we will be having a brief inauguration ceremony. Now, for the inauguration, I will invite our President, Dr. Sunita Engle ma'am, to give her welcome address.
Thank you so much, Neha. I'm very happy to acknowledge the presence of respected dignitaries from Central IIP, Maharashtra State IIP, and my dear seniors and colleagues and all the attendees. And we are very blessed to have with us the presence of Dr. Basavaraja sir, Honorary Secretary General. Dr. Jayant Upadhyay is yet to join. Dr. Jayant Pandrikar sir.
I have joined.
You joined?
Joined.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Jayant Upadhyay, West Zone Vice President, Dr. Jayant Pandrikar sir, who is the Maharashtra State President, State IIP President, and Dr. Amol Pawar, Treasurer of Maharashtra State IIP. And we are very happy to have Dr. Dhananjay Shah, who is a senior pediatrician from Rajkot, Gujarat, and he's a IIP President-elect 2022. And I'm very happy to see our senior colleagues like Dr. Dabadkar sir, then Dr. Nimen Monti sir, Dr. Sasane sir, and Dr. Mohite sir here, and Dr. Gangolia sir, Dr. Jay. So welcome on. Actually, this journal journey, I know it's a bit of tongue twister, but the journey of journal journey began just yesterday, actually. And we were all pondering about what to do for the Doctors' Day celebration when Dr. Jay Bhandarkar came up with this brilliant idea of having a reading of synopsis of articles. And after my nod, believe me, within 2 to 3 hours, Dr. Jay Bhandarkar and Dr. Hemant Gangolia put together this program. And so here it is. So it is materialized, and very happy for that. And since this is our first program and hurriedly put together, so in case there are any lacunae, so please kindly bear with us and do give your valuable suggestions and feedbacks, because we intend to have this session every month. And the experts today are very respected, highly respected teachers and academicians, and they are Dr. Nimen Monti sir, he's Emeritus Professor, MGM Hospital, Kamboli. Respected Dr. Sampath Sasane sir, he's the Honorary Professor, Terna Medical College, Navi Mumbai. And our dear respected Dr. Mahesh Mohite sir, he's a pediatric intensivist and neonatologist, and also the President-elect 2020 IIP Intensive Care Chapter. And the speakers today are Dr. Jay Bhandarkar, Dr. Prasanna Bansode, and Dr. Reena Jaibhai. Again, I welcome everyone once again, and over to Dr. Neha.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. Now I invite our Maha IIP President, Dr. Jayant Pandrikar sir, to say a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Neha. As I would say, very good evening to one and all, and I wish you all a very happy Doctors' Day. President of Raigad IIP, Dr. Sunita Engle madam, and then today's guest of honor, Dr. Basavaraja, who is Honorary Secretary General of Central IIP and powerhouse of Central IIP, I would say. Then my friend, Dr. Jayant Upadhyay, West Zone Vice President. Past West Zone Vice President and young pediatrician of Raigad IIP, Dr. Shekhar Dabadkar. Then our respected colleague, Dr. Dhananjay Shah sir from Gujarat, Dr. Hemant Bhai Gangolia, and all the experts for today's journal journey, and all the presenters for journal journey, and all the IIPians of Raigad and attendees. Friends, let me congratulate first IIP Raigad for this brilliant and innovative idea of conducting this journal journey. I know when we were PG, during PG activities, we used to conduct these journal clubs, but so many years listening to this journal journey. that I feel there are two advantages of this journey. Number one is that it's definitely whatever things which we churn out of this journey is going to help us, a common pediatricians, in their day-to-day practice. So they may not get time to read each and every journal, but definitely the gist of this journey will be helping them in their day-to-day practice. This is one advantage. Second thing, what I would foresee is that definitely this journal journey is going to inspire many pediatricians from our area, because we know we have a lot of clinical materials, but we never go for a compilation of it and putting it some research methodology on that and coming out with paper. What Western people they do in their routine practices. So here definitely this is going to
सुनील म्यूट कर रहे सुनील
definitely is good. Hello?
just 1 minute. ए सुनील जरा म्यूट कर रहे सुनील. हाँ, yes.
So
yes,
this
please,
definitely
please.
is going to help our pediatricians, especially from Raigad IAPNs, and I won't be surprised that in coming few years many Raigad IAPNs will be coming up with their own research papers in journals. So with this, once again I congratulate, and I must thank Dr. Hemant Bhai Gangolia and team Raigad IAP for inviting me, and I wish you all very happy learning and happy sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jain, sir. And now I invite our past West Zone Vice President, Dr. Chandrasekhar Dabadkar, sir, to share his valuable inputs.
मैंने बोलना जरूरी है क्या?
Yes, sir.
So our Honorable Vice President of West Zone and my friend Dr. J.N.G. Upadhyay. I am so happy to see Dr. Basavaraj is very enthusiastic person. All the dignitaries, I will not, it is very difficult to take name. Our President Dr. Sunita Ingre, the idea of the Jai Bhandarkar who conceived this idea, Hemant Gangulia, our academic guru Mahesh Mohite. Our President of Maharashtra is playing a very good role in Maharashtra at present, Dr. Pandrikar, Dr. Sadachar, Dr. Amol, and all my friends in Raigad district. Mohanty, Nimain Mohanty sir, all faculties, all speakers, all experts. I am sorry, it is very difficult to take every name. I all the time say that Raigad IAP is blessed with so many brains, and they are bubbling with some innovative ideas. Especially Dr. Jay, Dr. Hemant, Dr. Wankhede, Dr. Sunil, everybody, they are bubbling with so many ideas. Even yesterday night, we were discussing that what we should do on this Doctor's Day. I joined late and a lot of discussion was going on. Yesterday late night, I received a call from Jai Bhandarkar for some or other reason, and I said, "Ye sala Jai kai idea ho sakti hai." So Jai, please accept my compliments. Rather than taking so much time, I welcome all guests. I congratulate all Raigad IAP members for conceiving this idea, and I wish best luck in future. Thank you very much, Ingrid Madam, and thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Neha.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
शेट्टी मैडम जरा म्यूट करा ना. शेट्टी मैडम प्लीज. शेट्टी मैडम प्लीज म्यूट.
Vishal is there?
Yes, sir.
Please make me co-host also, sir. I can mute जो बोलते हैं mute करू सकते हैं.
Sure, sir.
हाँ, yes, continue.
Thank you so much, sir. Today we are blessed with us Vice President West Zone, Dr. Jayant Upadhyay, sir. Welcome, sir. Kindly give your valuable inputs.
Thanks, Dr. Neha, for your kind words. Dr. G.V. Basavaraj, Honorary Secretary General of Central IAP. Dr. Jayant Pandrikar, respected President of Maha IAP. Dr. Sunita Ingre, Madam, President of Raigad IAP. My good friend and past CIAP Vice President West Zone, Dr. Chandrasekhar Dabadkar. The respected teachers present today for this journal's journey, respected Dr. Nimain Mohanty sir and respected Dr. Sampath Sasane, respected Dr. Mahesh Mohite, my good friend, Dr. Hemant Gangolia, Dr. Dhananjay Shah, who is from Gujarat, Dr. Pramod Wankhede, Dr. Abba Saheb Patankar, Amol Madave, my friend Dr. Amol Pawar, Treasurer of MahaAP, Dr. Jay Bhandarkar, Dr. Sanjeevani More, Chitra Kulkarni, Dr. Reena, Dr. Amol Zaibhaye, Dr. Milind Kumar Jodge, Upendra Sugwekar, Nilima Bhandarkar Madam, Sachin, Sunil Seth, and all the respected members of Raigad IAP. Journal Journey, the headline which was told to me, the name of the program told to me by Dr. Gangolia sir yesterday has impressed me a lot. It is a very good idea to start a journal presentation. Usually we are hearing to so many lectures, so many webinars, so many discussions, group discussion, so many panel discussions and presentation. But journal on virtual platform is a wonderful idea, and I think probably floated by Raigad IAP for the first time in the history of IAP India. It's a wonderful thought, and that is going to take us a long way in exploring various journals. So my all the best wishes are with Raigad IAP, and now I think Raigad IAP should give me an honorary membership because I am now member of Raigad IAP in virtual terms. इतना ही कहना चाहूंगा, जब साथी इतने अच्छे हो तो ये जर्नल जर्नी का सफर कितना सुहाना होगा. I wish everybody will enjoy this journey of journal presentation, and I congratulate Dr. Jay Bhandarkar and team Raigad IAP for such a novel idea and for presenting such a novel educational program on virtual platform. I am very thankful to everyone for calling me for the inaugural episode of this journal journey. पहला कदम साथ में हमें उठाने के लिए, साथ में रखने के लिए आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. And once again, happy Doctors Day to each and every one. I pay my deep respect to all the teachers who will be conducting this program, especially Dr. Nimen Mohanty sir and Dr. Sampath Sasane and Dr. Mahesh Mohite. Wishing you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jain sir, for the appreciation. Today we are blessed to have with us Honorable Secretary General, dear Dr. Basavaraj sir. Welcome sir. I request you to give your blessings.
Thank you, Dr. Neha Singh Madam. Respected our West Zone Vice President, Dr. Jayant Upadhyay, our Maharashtra President, Jayant Pandrikar, and Secretary, Dr. Sadhachar, and Treasurer, Dr. Amol Pawar, our past Vice President of West Zone, Dr. Chandrasekhar Dhabadkar sir, my good friend. Celebrating a Doctor's Day in an innovative way, it is a brainchild of our Raigad branch, which is known for innovation, especially the leader like President Dr. Sunit Ingle Madam, Dr. Nilima Bhandarkar, our Secretary, and all the team of IAP Raigad coming out with this excellent idea of celebrating Doctor's Day, especially I used to say Bale Jodi, Dr. Hemant Gangolia sir and Dr. Jay Bhandarkar sir. I used to see them in a quiz. Now I'll be seeing it in a journal watch. So this is something very innovative within the most respected people like Dr. Sampath sir, Nimin Mohante sir, and my close friend, none other than Dr. Mahesh Mohite. We really enjoyed in 2020 for conducting many webinars. So it is a great initiative to start with a very, very academically known people. Any association to grow, it is an academics is the one thing which keeps alive this association. Rest of the things it can destroy at any moment of time, but academics is the one thing it will keep going. In that way, our Raigad branch is taken it in a very right step. I'm sure this is going to be the great success. And once again, I thank Dr. Dhananjay Shah is here to encourage our Raigad branch. Thank you, Dhananjay Shah sir, for your encouraging things. to be here. With these few words, I thank Team IIP Raigad branch, Dr. Sampath sir, Nimin, and Dr. Mahesh ji for taking your time to spread this academics to all the common members. That's the need of the hour. That's what we are seeing in over a period of time, few days. Once again, thank Chandrasekhar Davadkar sir. So we are not going to miss you. We are seeing you every day by day, younger and younger. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Basavaraj sir. We are also having with us Dr. Dhananjay Shah sir. He is Senior Pediatric Consultant from Rajkot and Senior IIP EB member. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, kindly unmute for your valuable inputs.
Yeah.
A message from great blogger. A message from great blogger.
I will not name everybody, but just respect and give my regards to everyone present over here. And as you all know, of late I have made an identity as a blogger. Blogger by blogger, I mean I put up information and statistics or data in such a way that a practitioner can grasp it easily rather than going through a number of books. So let me confess here that many of my blogs have been inspired by journals. The theme of the topic of the journal inspired me to collect some data from that journal itself. Apart from that, I also got information from other sources online, and then I added some masala of my knowledge and experience into that, and then framed and scripted every blog. All this, I think I have completed 100 blogs academic blogs. Earlier, I used to write more on finance blogs, but right now I'm writing more on academic and practical themes. And one of my blogs is very well appreciated by Dr. Ingle Madam, and maybe in the July edition of Utkarsh, you might be able to. You already read it, but it will be publicized and I'm so thankful. And I really appreciate the spirit of the members of Raigad branch of IIP, and not only the journal, but many other things have been for the first time in this small branch of IIP. And I think we can take a lead from IIP Raigad branch, even for our branches in Gujarat. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Neha, unmute.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. Now, after a brief inauguration and welcome ceremony, we start the program. First of all, I would like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Jay Bhandarkar, sir. So, Jay, sir.
Okay, so we know last 1.5 years we are just struggling with the COVID, right? So I contributed the same because in India we don't have a lot of data yet. So I procured all this data, this article from the website Update. And this gives what's the new clinical features of MIC compared with the severe acute COVID infection in children and adolescents. Let us explain something about this. This articles are quite huge, about 30 pages. I just taken some important one part of that. So the clinical features of this MIC, C and severe COVID overlap, and distinction between these two is very important because the management differs. So I explain later that the large multi-center study was done, almost more than 1100 patients. And how it should be differentiated, right? MIC or acute COVID, the clinical features overlap, but they differ in their clinical presentation as well as organ system involvement, and that differentiate MIC from the severe COVID-19 infection. So most of the MIC cases have occurred in the children who are previously healthy, and that to be most cases of severe acute COVID infection occur children with underlying some health problem. And the children with MIC may have history of known or suspected COVID infection in the weeks preceding the onset of febrile or inflammatory symptoms. So, what is the pattern of organ system involvement they was seen here? The severe pulmonary involvement, that is pneumonia, ARDS like a syndrome, was a prominent feature of severe acute COVID infection. While it is present in the MIC also, but they are more common seen due to pathophysiology of shock or impaired cardiac function. And the myocardial dysfunction and shock are the more common MIS-C than acute COVID-19. GIT symptoms are more common with MIS-C. Mucocutaneous findings are more common in MIS-C and rarely seen in acute COVID-19. Inflammatory markers, right? The CRP, ferritin, D dimers tend to be more strongly positive in MIS-C as compared to the severe acute COVID-19 infection. And in addition, lymphopenia and thrombocytopenia are more common with the MIS-C. And SARS-CoV-2 antibody titers are higher in patients with MIS-C in comparison to the acute COVID infection. So this trial was almost taken on the 1116 patients. Out of that, MIS-C were almost 539 patients. Severe acute COVID infection 577 patients. And MIS-C was seen more with the younger age. Median age was 8.9 versus 11.7 years of the COVID infection with underlying medical condition. That percentage was 31% versus 62%, and more multiple organ system involved, median more than 4 than 2 in the MIS-C, and half of the patient of MIS-C was having combined cardiovascular and respiratory involvement. Only 24%, this is important I feel, had respiratory involvement. When you talk of MIS-C, which is yes, rash रहेगा, hypotension रहेगा, shock रहेगा, there will be no respiratory symptoms, but 24% of the MIS-C patients they have observed they can present with the respiratory symptom also. And among the severe COVID, 71% had the respiratory involvement and 24% have the both cardiovascular as well as respiratory involvement. Only 9% has the cardiorespiratory involvement in that. So what is the differential? I am going first. Why should when MIS-C is present, the important differential diagnosis, because it's present in the fever, that will be an acute onset, maybe 4 or 5 days, which is very common. So what it consists, the signs symptoms of the consistent MIS-C will have broad spectrum. Other disease can be present in there, including some other infectious as well as inflammatory conditions. So they are observed Kawasaki disease, one of the important disease where that some children of MIS-C will have almost meet the criteria of complete or incomplete Kawasaki. And there are key distinction features between this MIS-C and this COVID, MIS-C and Kawasaki disease. And this even some patient of severe COVID may have overlap conditions. So what are some features? I will just explain that Kawasaki MIS-C usually affects only older children, and the Kawasaki usually affects the younger children. And MIS-C is more of a disproportionate affects the Hispanic group or black children's, and it will very lesser in the Asian country children's. And classic KD, other than you will have in East India or Asian descent, that is more common. And all these GIT symptoms, myocardial involvement, shock, will be more common with the MIS-C. Inflammatory markers, all these CRP, ferritin, D dimer will be more abnormal in the MIS-C. And in addition to that, this thrombocytopenia and the lymphopenia are more common with the MIS-C. And the risk of involvement of this coronaries, we very much worried when see the rash, fever, like a Kawasaki presentation of MIS-C, whether these children will have that coronary involvement. But by and large, they have seen, suppose in a classical Kawasaki patient, 5% patient with the Kawasaki shock syndrome, in that commonly they will found some coronary abnormalities, as well as they will be resistant to intravascular gamma globulins. They have observed, but in our MIS-C patient, they have done a lot of mild to moderate cases. almost 16 to 20% patient may have coronary involvement. So that denotes each and every patient of MIS-C should be followed for the coronary after 2 weeks after recovery, and depend on that after 1 month or after 1 year, depend on the pathophysiology or findings for the echocardiography, right? So again, going ahead with the other differential is the bacterial sepsis. If your patient more than 4 or 5 days, you have to rule out the bacterial infection in this patient, and that ultimately depends on the microbiological test with different cultures. As well as some patient may present a toxic shock syndrome like a streptococcal toxic shock syndrome, and many separate similarities with the MIS-C, but microbiological diagnosis are absolute necessary in this patient. What about the appendicitis? Yes, some patient present with the GI symptoms, we know vomiting, diarrhea, pain, and acute abdomen, and they almost mimic like appendicitis. We have to rule out that also. Other viral infections are there like Epstein-Barr, cytomegalo, adenovirus, enterovirus. But believe me, this multisystemic virus infection are very rarely caused in the immunocompetent patient, and that to be differentiated, diagnosed with the where to go for the PCR testing of these all viruses. They can distinguish it from the our main infection. And other infections are also there like a Lyme disease, rickettsial infection, murine typhus, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and that to be diagnosed with the serology and other PCR testing. And another important disease is the hemophilia, the HLS syndrome, but usually it is an aggressive condition. Some feature match with the or MIS-C, but this excessive immune activation usually occur in the healthy children, that is triggered by infection or rheumatological disease, and usually multi-organ involvement is seen. Mainly liver and CNS is involved, and other cardiac and gastro GIT symptoms are quite less. The diagnosis required specialized immunological testing that to be altogether with the rheumatologist. And another important condition is SLE, right? It can present acutely, but usually SLE will have some like a weakness or some common findings or features before presenting acutely. Usually it involves central nervous system and renal conditions, which is very uncommon with the MIS-C initially. Vasculitis, different vasculitis can be present with like mimic like our MIS-C, but like a acral surface or sometimes at the COVID toes, it can present like that. So what are the summary and recommendation about this? So coronavirus 2019, usually the infection is mild. Rare cases they can be severely affected, and these manifestations actually may differ from the adults. This MIS-C is an uncommon complication of the COVID-19 presentation, but they may present like a Kawasaki disease or toxic shock-like syndrome. And while the incidence of MIS-C is very uncertain, it is a relatively real complication, but it can occur at broad ages spectrum at any age, for infants to late adolescent. Most of them occur in the previously healthy children, and that to be 6 to 10 years age mostly. And Black and Hispanic children appears to be disproportionately affected, and it takes typically several weeks from surges from almost 4 to 6 after. That itself suggests it can be some immune dysregulation can be there. And what is the pathophysiology? I will not go into the detail of this. So it's mainly not well understood right now, but abnormal immune response to the virus. It is some similarity with the Kawasaki disease, macrophage activity syndrome, and some cytokine release syndrome. And this MIS-C appears to be immunophenotypically that is distinct from KD or MAS. And though positive serology of the SARS-CoV is the most important thing in this diagnosis, as well as negative PCR, but sometimes it can find with the positive PCR also, right? So there is a hypothesis related to immune dysregulation occurring after acute infection. That to be sometimes it happen. I already explained about the positive PCR testing also. How it is clinically present? Usually 4 or 5 days fever, acute onset, GIT symptoms, rash, conjunctivitis, and followed by development of shock. And common findings are the lymphopenia, inflammatory markers raised, as well as cardiac markers, troponin, BNP that can be raised, and that's the thing. So how do we evaluate the patient? Usually in mild patient, almost very simpler innovations like a CBC, CRP, and maybe renal function is required. If that is abnormal, then you can follow the second tier investigation well in advance. So what are the common differential diagnosis of MIS-C? What are the Kawasaki, toxic shock syndrome, appendicitis, bacterial infection? Some trophic infections you should be suspected if fever is more than 4.5 and doesn't fit into the MIS-C mainly. So this is all about my presentation. I think I was in time.
Dr. Jay, before we take the comments and questions from the experts, just one basic questions. Because of the upcoming monsoon season, how to differentiate MIS-C, Kawasaki, and upcoming viral fevers in clinical peripheral settings?
Yes. Things are there. I already explained you can different. The most commonest differential is suppose come like a Kawasaki infection because almost a presentation like a same. So this MIS-C have a three. I can say a spectrum or subgroups. First, MIS-C only without active COVID infection or Kawasaki. Second, MIS-C with the Kawasaki that can be common or uncommon. And third is like a only MIS-C present the active COVID with COVID infection. So three groups we have to differentiate between. And though I think our I can say that our experts should explain how to Mohit sir. Let us give some feedback how to go about it or the MIS-C आपण diagnose केल्यानंतर पुढे कसं जायचं, कसं diagnose करायचं आणि how it may not be MIS-C something other than is when to suspect. Please explain.
I clinically, may I take it?
Yes, sir.
Kawasaki, you will find more of the swelling of the extremities, hands and feet, and mucositis is more, and cardiac involvement more in the Kawasaki, and the age group, But MIS-C, you'll have the extrapulmonary symptoms will be more, because as you know, this is the receptors. They are less distributed in the pulmonary system or the lungs in children. In children, these receptors you'll find extrapulmonary, like distributed in GI or say in the liver. You have these organs are more involved in this MIS-C in children also. So rather than the pulmonary involvement. So then other things are the other topics which are coming up. We will come to know whether biomarkers are coming, which is not available now with us. Now this interleukin 18, interleukin 9, they are high. But here in MIS-C, you see that they say the interferon gamma induced CXCL, that is another marker, biomarker. This is very typical in the MIS-C. So the other topics which is coming up, probably that will be explained. Dr. Mohite, you have some clinical clue if you can add to this. How to differentiate?
First of all, the MIS-C, if you see over last 1.5 years, one thing that has not changed is the definition. So when we were on the first 6 cases, today, perhaps in India itself, 5,000 cases, world over maybe at least 1 lakh cases. Definition still remains the same, simply because it is reasonably inclusive even as on today. What is the difference between Kawasaki and MIS-C? The age group. Kawasaki we see in 0 to 5 years predominantly. MIS-C is in a bigger children. So there is a bit overlap, but I would say 80-90% Kawasaki you would say within first 5 years, and equal number 80 to 90% you will see after 5 years. That's one. Second, as the name suggests, MIS-C is a multi-system. Kawasaki is predominantly unisystem if it goes by system, though there are other 5 criteria which we always try to fulfill: the mucocutaneous changes, then the mucositis, and then the conjunctive, non-purulent conjunctivitis, unilateral lymph node usually, the cervical lymph node, and then you have, so those are the fever more than 5 days. So out of those 5, you should have at least 4 criteria. And in fact, the coronary is not a defining criteria as far as Kawasaki is concerned. That's an add-on feature, or other inflammatory markers add-on feature. Vis-a-vis, if you look at MIS-C by definition, it's 0 to 19 years, though they are given, but predominantly we see children above 5 years, 5 to 10 years, maybe up to 15 years you have seen. And then you have got to define the 2 or more than 2 system that includes mucocutaneous as only one system, and then cardiac, respiratory, all system they have taken, because still we are seeing more and more presentation. We see stroke as a presentation. We see nephritis as a presentation. We see hepatitis as a presentation. So every single system, either clinically or biochemically defined, is taken as an individual system. And then inflammatory markers are the defining criteria, and which has to be there as a impulsory, which is not there in Kawasaki definition. You may or may not be having those. So Kawasaki essentially is a clinical diagnosis, and MIS-C is clinical as well as a lab, and then rule out sepsis as being third factor, and last being the evidence of COVID. So I think there's a reasonable kind of a separation. At present, we don't see so many COVID primary cases being serious in pediatric age group. Maybe tertiary level, because of the referral bias, they may be presenting cases. But if you see, analyze what we see in the Raigad pediatric practice, who has seen a serious COVID? I don't think we have. Even whatever we admit, they are not really very bad. But in Kawasaki, or from the MIS-C side, I would say about 25 to 30% are requiring ICUs, 70% on the milder variety. I think it's very easy to differentiate between these two. So define those criteria which are already written. So WHO criteria made in MIS-C are totally different from those in Kawasaki. And Kawasaki, over the time, we have learned to define them as incomplete or typical. Perhaps same thing will happen in MIS-C as well, because we are seeing different presentations. But we are into that disease. So as on today, you fulfill those basic 5 or 6 criteria: age group 0 to 19, fever more than 3 days, multi-system presentation, inflammatory markers, sepsis ruled out, and evidence of COVID as far as MIS-C is concerned. And as far as Kawasaki, take those criteria, which are, again, they are also changed over the time. The American Heart Association says, though the original definition is fever 5 days, more than 5 days, American Heart Association says even 3 days is okay. Right. So definition of Kawasaki changing of late, but MIS-C, I suppose, last almost 1.5 years, the definitions remain the same. And still, as on today, we define with that only. So I think that's how we'll go.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Very nicely explained by Dr. Mahesh Moite, difference between Kawasaki and MIS-C. First and foremost thing, we have to remember that MIS-C is a diagnosis of exclusion. It is not a primary diagnosis. In IAP guidelines of MIS-C, we have seen tier 1 investigation, then tier 1, which are essential. Then we go to tier 2 investigation to see whether cardiac involvement is not there or not. That coronary score, then ejection fraction less than 35, coronary score of Z score more than 10. These are the tier 1 and tier 2 investigation. Tier 1 investigation includes exclusion of even malarial fever, enteric fever, rickettsial disease, leptospirosis, and all these things. As far as the criteria in differentiation are concerned, Dr. Mahesh Moite has explained it very nicely. You have mentioned mention of HLH also. So HLH is altogether a different presentation. The markers are very high. ES is low, CRP is rising, then afibrinogenopenia is there, and ferritin levels are in tens of thousands, more than 5,000. Usually MISC, the levels of ferritin are less than 5,000. If I'm not mistaken. So there are differentiating points. As far as acute COVID and MISC is concerned, there can be overlap, but acute COVID usually is seen with children who are about 12 years of age, severe COVID, I mean to say, and with mostly with comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, renal, cardiac, and other diseases. Even in malnutrition children, this is going to be a big problem. It is also one of the comorbidities in pediatric age group. So we have to, for a MIS-C, we are investigating for each and everything. We have to rule out other diseases, even blood culture we are sending to rule out sepsis. So if properly investigated, it is not that properly evaluated, will not be that difficult to reach a proper diagnosis. And to reach a diagnosis of MIS-C is a diagnosis of exclusion, of course. So we have to consider everything. We are considering everything in its definition itself and investigation. As far as management approach is concerned, Kawasaki and this MIS-C, the treatment part is almost similar. We are giving IVIG, we are giving methylprednisolone. Methylprednisolone is the addition, and if the Z score and ejection fraction is less, of course, with coronary dilatation, we are using low molecular weight heparin. I think that's it.
Dr. Neha, we have very less time. It is now 10:17. So we
Yes,
have
sir.
to hurry up.
One
And I request
more point I want to add.
Dr. Sassani sir want to tell one point.
Yes,
Yes.
Sassani.
Very nicely put, all the speakers and the Jay. But Jay, one common infection, streptococcal infection, is very common. We have to rule out that.
Right.
And that streptococcal infection will give immediate result with some antibiotics, hence fever will subside. And another thing, when there is a fever, if you take the X-ray and if showed the cardiomegaly, you should suspect the myocarditis or Kawasaki. That's all.
Point well taken.
ठीक है, okay.
Yes, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Jay sir, for wonderful article on MISC and other MISC mimics. Also a wonderful discussion and input by our experts. After the first session, we move to our second speaker, Dr. Prasanna Bansuri sir. Sir, kindly unmute. Prasanna sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yes,
Yes, sir, you are audible.
First, I will say thank you to all. Thank you to IIP Raigad family for giving me the opportunity to be a part of the opening episodes of Journal Journey. Today, I am presenting a meta-analysis of cardiac markers in a MISC in COVID-19 patients. Now, this has been meta-analysis which is recently done in 2021 and published in the American Journal of Emergency Medicines. As we know that novel coronavirus has spread globally and it has caused a pandemic. Initially, it was thought to be the disease of adult and relatively sparing of children in the first wave was a sign of relief for us. But the emergence of MISC has put forth a challenge for us to management. So multiple guidelines are being published for the management of MISC, but still, as Dr. Jay Bhandarkar has said, we are still exploring newer clinical features and newer findings in MISC. So Whitaker and et al. Just now published a large study from UK where he has defined MISC into 3 different types of presentations. First, people they present with persistent fever and high inflammatory markers, but there is no organ involvement. But if there is no organ involvement, by definition, we cannot include it in a MISC. But few people they are presenting like this. Second, fever with cardiovascular collapse. Here you get elevated cardiac biomarkers like NT-proBNP, troponin T. And third type of MISC which present is Kawasaki-like disease or Kawasaki shock syndrome. We call it as a Kawa COVID type, which is an overlap of MISC and Kawasaki. Now the fever and this cardiovascular collapse and Kawasaki with shock are really a threatening presentations where emergent diagnosis, assessment of severity and adequate management is required. So multiple studies, they have studied the characteristic of different cardiac biomarkers, the level of which may gives us a guidelines for the management of MISC early and to prevent the complications. But there was no meta-analysis performed of all these studies for the evidence-based data on the characteristic of cardiac markers. So this meta-analysis gives us evidence-based data on characteristic of cardiac biomarkers like BNP, troponin T, NT-proBNP, AST, or CPKMB. So the method by which this study was done, they follow the PRISMA statement. So this is authenticated study. So literature search was done from the beginning till the April 2021. Here in this study, the inclusion criteria were cohort or case control studies. There are MIC, PIMS or PIMS-PS patients, they were included. And the primary outcome of the study were the cardiac biomarkers, at least NT-proBNP or troponin. and the secondary outcome was AST. So all these study were critically evaluated for the primary outcome of the cardiac biomarkers. The data collection, it was done by 2 independent reviewers. Now for the study part, they defined 2 conditions which are very important for the further evaluations, like severe COVID. What is mean by severe COVID? They defined it as a COVID with ARDS with invasive ventilations or increasing positive pressure ventilation from baseline. So these patients were included in a severe COVID. And MIC is defined by the clinical criteria, WHO or RCH guidelines. But severe MIC is defined as criteria for MIC has to be fulfilled, plus they may require ventilatory support, they may require inotropes, fluid resuscitation, or management of shock, or there is a fatal outcome. So for these 2 conditions, they have defined. Results, they have conducted almost 3,944 study results. But after critically evaluating by the inclusion criteria and the primary outcome markers, only 24 were included. Now let me tell you, out of these 24, 3 are of moderate evidence studies and 24 were high quality studies. The participants were almost 2,583 patients of MIC and COVID. Out of these 2,583 patients, 1,613 were MIC patients and 970 COVID patients. So for this meta-analysis, this is a huge number of cohort. So in these different studies, 15 studies were compared MIC with simple COVID-19. There was a comparison between MIC, COVID-19 and their biomarkers. 9 studies has compared MIC with severe COVID-19 and their biomarkers. 8 studies have compared severe MIC with non-severe MIC. And 3 studies, they compared MIC with coronary artery anomalies or MIC without coronary artery anomalies. So 4 different type of clinical situations are being compared for the cardiac biomarkers, whether they will help you in the early diagnosis or differentiation or in the management. So in their study, so first MIC versus non-severe COVID-19. You can see the diamond on the right side. So this is a BNP they have tested. So brain natriuretic peptide, we say it as a misnormal term, but it is released by the ventricles and atria. So it is significantly elevated in cases of MIC versus non-severe COVID-19. But for MIC versus severe COVID-19, there was no much difference. So BNP is taken as a marker of MIC if you compare it with non-severe COVID. It is more elevated in MIC as compared to the non-severe COVID. The p-value was almost less than 0.05. So this is statistically significant. But when you compare troponin, which is also guidelines given by WHO as a marker and diagnosis of MIC, here troponin doesn't seem to be much different in MIC versus neither in a severe COVID-19 nor in a non-severe COVID-19. So troponin doesn't make any sense in making differentiation between these 2 conditions. So BNP, if we consider, it is more prominently increased in MIC than non-severe COVID. While BNP in MIC is equal to severe COVID. So if the patient is having severe COVID, BNP will not differentiate it from a MIC and severe COVID. Second, they have compared severe versus non-severe MIC. whether we can differentiate from the biomarkers a MISC, which is a severe MISC or just a mild MISC. So here BNP is found to have some value in differentiating between severe MISC and mild MISC, while troponin didn't have that much of value. So severe versus non-severe MISC, BNP is raised in severe MISC than non-severe MISC. So here again the p-value is less than 0.05, and troponin and AST has no significant difference. Again, they compared BNP in cases of coronary artery anomalies without coronary artery anomalies. So BNP, you can see here, it doesn't have got any statistical significant value. Troponin also didn't have any statistical value. Even AST also has got no statistically significant value. So the conclusion came that in cases of coronary artery anomalies, either due to MISC or due to Kawasaki disease, or any condition without coronary artery anomalies, the cardiac biomarkers won't help you in guiding the management or in evaluating the severity of the conditions. There are few limitations of this study. The limitations are small sample sizes. The multiple studies has got a very small sample size. BNP and troponin are not primary outcome in most of the studies they have conducted. While there was moderate heterogeneity in results, and the creatinine kinase MB is not included in this study. So these are the limitations of this study. So in summary, BNP is increased in MISC. It is also increased in severe MISC and severe COVID. But BNP is not much increased in plain COVID-19 infection and non-severe MISC. So this is the role of BMMC in making the diagnosis of MISC and guiding about the management part. While troponin, AST, they did not show any difference. There is no role in predicting coronary artery anomalies. Thank you. Thank you.
Prasanna,
you,
stop sharing. Stop sharing. Prasanna, stop sharing.
Thank you, Dr. Prasanna, sir, for presenting the detailed
Prasanna, there is
article.
a small question
and
from my
cardiac
side. Prasanna,
Yes, sir.
very small question. If we come across a patient who is into shock due to say MISC, patient has presented to us in a shock. We definitely know that his pro-BNP is going to be high if it is going to a case of MISC.
Correct.
But if you find MISC in a case of MISC with very high pro-BNP and patient still normal, so
Correct.
do you want to categorize this patient only on biomarkers, or you can take the clinical criteria?
Sir, biomarkers, they will elevate first before you get any clinical findings. Because the BNP is released from the myocytes, and it is released by myocyte stretch rather than myocytal damage. So before you get any echocardiographic findings also, the BNP may be high. And if we find it is a rising trend, then it is clear-cut significant that there is something problematic going on in the cardiovascular system. So we should take it seriously.
Is there anything which we can say that cutoff, so that we can say that beyond this we should be very much observant? Or
Normally few of the studies, they have mentioned a value 2 times or 10 times more than the baseline should be considered as a abnormal. At least 2 times above the baseline needs to be taken seriously, and the child needs critical follow-up.
Okay.
Prasanna, can we predict the complication? So what PNB, pro-BNP is more, you diagnose the case, whether this patient will crash, whether that will depend on the BNP level. We can predict, because here said before patient presents or clinically going for a deterioration, your pro-BNP will be high, whether that can be there, right?
Yes, that is why the BNP is high. Na?
Okay.
That is why the BNP is high. That means we need to, but only BNP is not the source or primary criteria for making the diagnosis. You critically need echocardiographic evaluation also. You need to rule out any structural anomalies, any obstructive pathologies.
Whether pro-BNP will guide us the treatment, IVIG, steroid.
Yes. Decreasing pro-BNP is a good prognostic value.
Okay. So it can be monitored, patient monitor.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay.
It can guide you it can tell you about the severity of the disease. It can guide you the treatment, and it can tell you about the prognostication also.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent presentation, I can say.
Experts to say something. Experts to say something.
No, that's why these investigations are not very commonly available in the field. Probably slowly these will be made available. This is a cardiac marker particularly. The cytokine storm, which actually when it occurs, then only we find this kind of a crash. Initially, when the COVID infection comes, it doesn't have the crash. Only it is an immunological system. When the body reacts and releases so many cytokines in response to contain the COVID, those cytokines, they attack our system, normal system, and the system crash. It mainly is the endothelium, vascular endothelium is damaged, and there's a clotting, and everywhere, all the multi-system, kidney, liver, GI, brain, every system is involved. Of course, it's in children, we know the pulmonary component is little less. So I was saying that that's the interferon gamma-induced CXCL, this kind of markers are coming up now. They are very specific to MIS. Then they will differentiate between Kawasaki. And third one, they are bringing this macrophage activation syndrome more as a differential diagnosis than other thing. In our setup, things are different. This is an article in Lancet. In our system, infection will be high in the cardio should be excluded in Indian scenario. So we are learning more and more because the new disease, our knowledge is also new. We'll learn slowly and mature ourselves. And the third presentation, Dr. Mohit may add something. So after that, we'll go for the third. After that, we can discuss a little more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was just wondering what this particular study or meta-analysis has added to our logical understanding of the disease. I'm just putting it here. First of all, we don't have much of a kind of a confusion between diagnosing a mild COVID from a MIS-C. These are two different entities. Now, severe MIS-C and severe COVID, you said, are almost having the pro-BNP high. There perhaps you don't have much confusion because both are bad. This is giving the same kind of it's just kind of giving authenticated data that what we have been thinking so many years or almost a year is just about right from the statistical point of view. But I don't think it has really added anything extra to our knowledge as far as understanding this. Now, this particular thing is extremely important. Why it is important? If you take one particular, see, one of the major investigation required to find out whether cardiac affection is there or not is echocardiography, to be done by an expert cardiologist. I have been doing it for last 7 to 8 years, but still I can't authentically tell you the coronary size. It's a super specialty job. Now, in India, how many people or what population has an access to expert cardiologists may not be even 10 to 20%. Then what about the rest of the 80%? That is where this study can play a role. So tomorrow, if you authentically tell me that this level of pro-BNP correlates with a definite myocardial or coronary affection, then I have clear guidelines where I should give my IVIG. Else, I have been draining it into gutters. I give it to IV. You see the guidelines given in June or even today. all guidelines, many of them, if you see the Western guidelines specifically where resource is not a problem, they are giving 90% patient of MIS-C, whether it is mild, moderate, severe, 90% are getting IVIG. And if you see the corporate hospitals in India, almost following the same guidelines today. But if I'm looking at it from our peripheral center, where if you get a 50 kg child and you have a doubt, then that child, if I have to give IVIG, that costs them, if you go by the MRP, 3 lakh rupees. In my center, I may get it from the company where it may be about 1.25, 1.5 lakh. And then that's a limitation. Where if I get an authentic lab test, which can correlate with the coronary or myocardial dysfunction, then that will make a huge role if it is in a center where your cardiologist is not available. And I would say that is a category where there is kind of a subset or cohort, which is almost 80% population in India. But unfortunately, today we don't have authentic number of pro-BNP. Rest of the numbers, forget, I'm not talking TROP-T, TROP-I and your CPK. I'm only talking about pro-BNP, which has been kind of boomed at this point in time. But there is no authentic number of a pro-BNP. I can show you, we so far had almost about 55 plus cases. We do pro-BNP for most of them. And whenever we have at least 4 or 5 cases where the pro-BNP was 20,000 in a very stable child, we did not give IVIG to those children, all got better. So that's a limitation. See, when you are getting a study from US, UK, Europe, they are the resource abundant patients. Every patient gets IVIG. So they don't have a correlate. So I took a review of, we have 4 cardiologists, pediatric cardiologists working in Mumbai. Collectively, this I have done about 2 weeks ago. I just put kind of questionnaire to them. So they have seen about 500, including our Bhushan, totally 500 cases. And asked them one question, do you follow a single number pro-BNP? They said 2,000. I said 2,000 means now peripheral person 2,000 should give IVIG. They said, we don't know. So can 10,000 be given? We don't know. So there is no correlate. There's no correlate. That's the problem. So this study, fine, it just authenticates our understanding that severe MIS-C will have pro-BNP high. But that doesn't mean that all pro-BNP high will be getting IVIG. So this really doesn't reflect into patient management. This is just an old understanding which is being authenticated by this study, but that really doesn't reflect into any change in our understanding or kind of putting it onto bedside. This is good in the books, but this is not book to the bedside. That's a limitation.
So, sir, the patient, so the case in which you had 20,000 value, how did you correlate it? Means how do you decide that you are not going to give IVIG?
See, we do ourselves, and we called Bhushan also to do the cardiac studies. So with our understanding, and I'm sure Bhushan, if he's here, he will also agree. I would say we have given, of the 55 cases, I've given IVIG to, I think, only 7 cases. So that makes hardly about 10% cases. And exactly the thing when it comes to corporate. And believe me, I have not lost a single MIC. All have survived. And for 6 weeks and 3 months, none of them is left with any coronary damage at the end of 3 months. So
sir,
they don't.
What dose of steroid you use, sir, instead of IVIG?
Right, I give 10 mg per kg. If there is a shock child, then maybe 30 mg per kg. But generally 10 mg per kg within.
I suppose this 20,000 pro-BNP is there, and there is mild.
Mild, agreed. This will get maybe not 10, but he will not 2, but he will get 10. If it is a mild, I may just put 2 milligram per kg prednisone.
How many of the patients, sir, you have seen those are responding to the proper guidelines? Those are been published that 1 to 2 milligram per kg of methylprednisolone to be given with IVIG.
Mild ones, yes, we are using 2 milligram.
Are they responding to 1 to 2 milligram per kg per day?
We are using, yes, they do. We are using.
Prasanna, I am using dexamethasone 0.15 milligram per kilogram, and I am seeing that fever is getting subsided within 24 hours. Okay. 0.15 milligram. That's the reason I had put on one of the books.
Means they don't have any organ involvement.
It's a mild
organ involvement, but there is
no organ.
Definitely, there is organ involvement, but because as you said, if pro-BNP is high, there is definitely going to be a cardiac involvement. So there is organ involvement. We are not doing
the category mild is organ involvement, but not organ damage or failure.
Perfect.
It's an organ involvement. You have AGPT, AGOT high. It is not organ damage and organ failure.
It is
That's a
involvement.
mild
That barobar. It is something, but they are responding.
Yes, I agree.
Mahesh, one question. Instead of doing the BNP, if you do the CRP, rising fever, what is your take on that?
These are two different numbers. CRP is an inflammatory marker, which is surrogate of IL-6, interleukin-6. So in the liver, through gamma interferon pathway, IL-6 is stimulating to make CRP. So that's a surrogate. CRP is a surrogate of interleukin-6, which is one of the most important cytokine in this manner. Another one is IL-1, and your tissue TNF-alpha is an initiator, which will make these two tracks. So IL-1 recently has been found to be working with more of CNS manifestations. IL-6 more with hepatic and generalized manifestation. So here, when we talk about multi-organ, we essentially, that's the reason we use tocilizumab as IL-6 blocker, and IL-1 Western world is using, which is having lesser toxicity, short acting effect. So that's preferable, but it's not. It's anakinra, which is not available in India. Okay, but when we talk about pro-BNP is a kind of a marker of stretching. It's like we used to talk about atrial natriuretic factors. So that is just a stretching of the cardiac compartment. So atria being stretched because of increased volume will lead to increased ANP. Similarly, myocardial dysfunctions. Why BNP increases? First of all, it's edematous myocardium, and then stretching of the myocardial compartment, which will lead to BNP secretion through the myocardial. Like Prasanna said, it's from the myocardium which is effused from that. So that's a marker of a myocardial injury. But I don't know whether there is any correlate that mild has 2,000, moderate has 5,000, severe has 20,000.
No.
Unfortunately, there is no correlate of that.
No correlation.
I seriously think just a myocardial edema will give us to 20,000 at times. And if it is edema, rather than IVIG, use steroid, that works. Yes. See, this is important for the Indian perspective. The cost of steroid is 100 rupees. Cost of IVIG is 10,000 to maybe ₹1,00,000. So it's very important in Indian perspective, who definitely requires it. And perhaps coronary dilatation is one answer. But honestly, I strongly believe MIS-C coronary dilatation is not the same as KD coronary dilatation. KD being seen in early age group. So those who are having before 6 months, 40% coronary damage, many of them persistent. Between 6 months to 3 years, 25% getting damaged, many getting persistent beyond 1 year, 2 years. KD, we have a review of 500 coronaries, not a single getting abnormal after 3 months. So this is a different disease. Don't mistake this. I won't be surprised after 1 year. Even guidelines will come that even 5% patient may not require IVIG. 90% will be steroid. 95% will be only steroids. We are
that to high dose.
Not essentially. I think we are overusing steroids also. So maybe 10 mg will be okay. Unless the patient is in shock. Initial dose of 30, then you get on to 10, perhaps that also is okay. Don't forget steroid is also bad. And especially methylprednisolone, not all that safe.
Thanks, Dr. Moiti sir. Dr. Neha, third case, please.
Thank you, Dr. Prasanna sir, for presenting a detailed article on cardiac markers of MISC and also the discussion. Now we move forward to our last speaker, Dr. Reena Jaibhai. Ma'am, please share your article.
By the time screen sharing is there, I acknowledge presence of our MAHA-IP Secretary, Dr. Sadachar sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, madam.
Good evening, all the seniors. So I'm presenting today is actually an old article, 2019 article.
Madam, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, sir, I am a rheumatologist and immunologist. I am working as assistant professor in MGM Medical College, Kamote. I have done my fellowship from CMC Vellore, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So this is an article about efficacy of primary treatment with immunoglobulin plus cyclosporin for prevention of coronary artery abnormalities in patients with Kawasaki disease, predicted to be at increased risk of non-responsive to IVIG. So its short form is a KAIKA study. It was a randomized controlled open label blinded phase 3 trial. So we have already discussed KD and MISC. So I would like to say that the GWAS studies till now have shown that ITPKC, the genetic variant ITPKC and Cas3 genes have been conferred to add to the susceptibility to Kawasaki disease, along with other genes such as FCGRA, mannose binding ligand, HLA class 2. So they lead to increased signaling through the ITPKC gene that lead to increased signaling through the calcium nuclear factor of activated T cells, that is NF-AT pathway, and that leads to immune cell activation and inflammation, and that may lead to increase the patient's risk to unresponsiveness to IVIG and development of coronary artery aneurysms. So the cyclosporin that they have used, the pathophysiological basis of using cyclosporin was it's a calcineurin inhibitor, and it inhibits translocation of this nuclear factor activating T cells pathway. The cyclosporin binds to calcineurin, and that binds to calcium calmodulin dependent phosphatase, which will inhibit the translocation of the transcription factor, that is NF-AT, and this will decrease the production of interleukin 2, interleukin 3, and interleukin 4, TNF alpha, which are implicated in the pathogenesis of Kawasaki disease, and that will ultimately decrease in T cell production. So as we know, CD8 T cells are implicated in the pathogenesis of IVIG. So already there was RCT, that is RAISE study, RAISE trial, RAISE, which is a prednisone and infliximab. Prednisone and IVIG was used together in treatment of the Kawasaki disease, who are suspected to have going to have resistance to single dose of IVIG. And also there was a trial of IVIG plus infliximab. So with this pathophysiological background, they thought that we should study cyclosporin plus IVIG in determination of whether it will reduce the incidence of coronary artery aneurysms. So with that objective, they started. So the inclusion criteria of this study was the pediatric patients with diagnosis of KD according to Kawasaki disease diagnostic guideline, the 5th revised edition. So who made it of this? Out of 6, they should include 5 principal symptoms should be there, and patients of 4 months of age or older were included, and inclusion in the study within 7 days of the disease onset. So considering the day of fever as day 1. So they included severe KD patients with a risk score of 5 points or higher for assessment of risk score for IVIG unresponsiveness. So this is called a Kobayashi score. Kobayashi score includes sodium less than or equal to 133, which was given 2 points, AST of more than or equal to 100, that is 2 points, days of illness at initial treatment less than or equal to 4 days, points 2, and neutrophil percentage more than or equal to 80% was 2 points, CRP more than or equal to 10 was 1, age less than or equal to 12 months 1, and platelet less than or equal to 3 lakh as 1 point. So if the score was more than or equal to 5, then it was considered as it was considered to be predictor for development of Kawasaki disease. There is exclusion criteria were history of KD recurrence, then coronary artery aneurysms developed prior to enrollment, defervescence prior to enrollment or afebrile, that is less than 37.5 degrees Celsius at the disease onset. Patients suspected to have other diseases with similar symptoms to KD, such as scarlet fever, measles. Initiation of IVIG treatment on 9th day after disease onset. Treatment with IVIG within previous 180 days of enrollment. Treatment with steroids, pulse, or any biological agent, plasmapheresis, any other immunosuppressant within previous 30 days. History of hypersensitivity to cyclosporin, IVIG, or aspirin. So, and having experience of treatment of tacrolimus previously, which are related to cyclosporin. Rozu and the statins. ALT-AST values of 500 IU per liter or higher, and estimated GFR of 50 ml per minute per meter square or lower. Presence of any active bacterial infection, treatment with other investigational drugs within previous 12 weeks, and patients for whom safety reasons the investigator felt that the participation should not be there. So the intervention was study group received cyclosporin 5 milligram per kg per day orally, divided into 2 daily doses for 5 days in addition to IVIG and aspirin. Plasma cyclosporin concentrations were measured immediately before oral administration in the morning on day 3 and day 5 of the treatment. The dose of cyclosporin was increased or decreased from the 5 milligram per kg per day according to the levels, whether it is falling between 60 to 100 or not. So that is a therapeutic range. An additional dose of IVIG 2 gram per kg was administered to patients whose body temperature was more than 37.5 degrees Celsius at 48 hours after initiation of primary therapy. Patients whose body temperature did not drop to below 37.5 at 24 hours after initiation of second dose of IVIG received third line treatment according to the accepted treatment guideline, which may be anything: anakinra, tocilizumab, infliximab. Control was conventional group received initial treatment of IVIG 2 gram per kg or for 12 to 24 hours, and aspirin 30 milligram per kg per day. Then primary endpoint. The endpoint was incidence of coronary artery aneurysm from treatment day 3 to week 12. And coronary artery aneurysms were detected by echo, was done at each institution once before the primary treatment started and 5 times afterwards. That is at day 3, week 1, 2, 4 and week 12. And the video data was recorded. And that video data was masked for clinical information and analysis by event evaluation committee. So the masking was there, blinding was there at the reviewer end. At each time point, absolute diameters of proximal right coronary artery, left main coronary artery, proximal left LAD and left circumflex were measured. The primary endpoint was defined as the coronary artery aneurysm was diagnosed according to Japanese Ministry of Health. The criteria was they included absolute values actually. So more than or equal to 3 mm in less than 5 years old and more than or equal to 4 mm in children more than or equal to 5 years old. Or relative increase, that is more than or equal to 1.5 times adjacent segments or basal values of internal diameter of coronary arteries. The incidence of coronary artery at week, the secondary endpoint was incidence of coronary artery at week 4 and Z scores. The maximum Z score was defined by the largest Z score of the 3 segments between treatment day 3 and week 12. Duration of fever after initiation of primary treatment, if the proportion of patients who become febrile at each treatment day, use of additional or third line therapy. So these were all secondary endpoints. So primary endpoint was absolute diameters. Secondary endpoint also included changes in CRP concentrations, the lab data at baseline, day 3, 5 and week 2, 4 and week 12. The effects of the risk alleles of ITPKC and Cas3 were also measured, means on patient's outcome. That also was investigated in this study. So method, it is a randomized open label blinded endpoints multi-center phase 3 trial. Patients were 175 and hospitals involved were 22 only in Japan from May 29, 2014 to December 27, 2016. Patients were randomly allocated to 1:1 group, study and conventional group, and patients and treating physicians were not masked, while echo assessments were masked. So the study profile, as I told, 175 after exclusion, and they got 87 divided into 2 groups. The baseline characteristics of these 2 groups were matched. They also match the ITPKC and Cas3 mutation distribution in these 2 groups. So baseline values, baseline age and sex characteristics were also matched. Incidence of CAA during trial was significantly lower in the study group. As you can see in this table of their results at week 4, the secondary endpoint, the IVIG plus cyclosporin group had only 2% incidence, while that p-value is 0.17 and the risk ratio was only 0.35. So, and the primary endpoint, they had coronary artery abnormalities is 12, that is 14% in IVIG plus cyclosporin. It was 31% in IVIG, only IVIG group, and p-value was significant. And the means, when the secondary endpoint was Z scores, but the mean Z scores for each coronary artery segment was not different, significantly different between two groups. So, and this graph showed that the more patients in the conventional group treatment seem to have coronary artery Z score 3 or more. So these red spots indicate more than or equal to 3 mm of coronary artery diameters, and more of in the only conventional group. Cyclosporin group had less involvement. The duration of fever after treatment initiation was shorter in study group than conventional group. So this is this Kaplan-Meier curve with percentage of febrile patients, as you can see in the IVIG plus cyclosporin group was lower, while CRP concentrations expressed as ratios were lower in the study group on day 3 and day 5 in study group. Now, the secondary endpoint also included the non-response to primary therapy or relapse. So 17% in IVIG plus cyclosporin had non-response to primary therapy and required second or third line therapy, while IVIG, it was 37%. And the relapses actually were more in IVIG plus cyclosporin than compared to IVIG alone. So that was discrepant in that study. The incidence of adverse events and serious adverse events were not different between the two groups, and 3 patients in the conventional group had cardiovascular collapse because of Kawasaki shock syndrome. The adverse events they have mentioned here. So the conclusion was the coronary artery aneurysm defined by Japanese criteria. So that only absolute diameters was efficiently prevented by cyclosporin plus IVIG. While positive changes in Z score at treatment day 3 and day 8 in the conventional group was observed, this supported the importance of early, and also CRP was lesser in study group as compared to the conventional group. So it will help in early resolution of inflammation if you give intensified first line therapies. So that was their conclusion. And also the observation they raise is there is a possibility that patients treated with IVIG plus cyclosporin rather than IVIG alone are more susceptible to relapse after termination of the primary therapy. But incidences of CAA were same. So optimizing the primary treatment protocol to reduce relapse would enable coronary artery aneurysm to be suppressed more efficiently. Thank you.
Ma'am, what is your take home from this presentation?
So the take home, sir, is...
Madam, stop sharing. Please stop sharing.
Yes, sir, sorry.
Okay, continue. You can continue, madam. No problem.
I'm not able to stop. Sorry.
There's a green stop sharing. Stop share.
Sir, sorry, I got it. So the take home message from this is in a Kawasaki disease where you feel that it is when you calculate through Kobayashi score or Igami score, if you feel that if it is there going to be IVIG resistance, then it is better to combine therapies along with IVIG because the if the damage occurs, that is, it will occur within 24-48 hours. So if there there is a damage, there will be calcification and it will be a long-term damage. So we want to prevent that damage. So if we are going to have data by Kobayashi score that there is going to be a high chance of having IVIG resistance, it is better to combine therapy. So already we have a RAISE study showing prednisolone is also effective. We have infliximab also. And now cyclosporin with the pathophysiological basis. We can use cyclosporin, which is also a cheaper drug and more effective, more potent. The only problem is they have used very short term. It should have been more longer. That is what I feel. Longer treatment of cyclosporin would have prevented the relapses.
Madam, from your presentation, we want to say that if somebody of a Kawasaki disease patient having coronary abnormality, upfront should be given IVIG and cyclosporin together.
Sir, the risk assessment should be done for each patient of Kawasaki. As I told, that Kobayashi score we should calculate, and if it is going to be high, there is a high chance of IVIG resistance, go ahead and give upfront
Will you able to explain that score again, if possible?
Yeah. Kobayashi score includes, sir, the sodium value, which is less than or equal to 133, 2 points. Then the day of illness at which treatment was started, that is less than or equal to 4 days, it is 2 points. AST, liver enzyme more than or equal to 100, 2 points. Neutrophil percentage more than or equal to 80, 2 points. CRP more than or equal to 10, 1 point. And age less than or equal to 12 months, 1 point. And platelet less than or equal to 3 lakh is 1 point. So if the score is more than or equal to 5, then it is a high risk, considered to be high risk for IVIG resistance.
You also said that sometimes if you don't want to use cyclosporin, you can use steroids also.
Yes, sir.
So
That
in
is
the present scenario, do you recommend using steroid is also a good choice?
Yes, sir. Steroid we can use in such cases because it is already proven by RAISE trial that steroids are effective, and steroids is it will cause blanket immunosuppression. That's why they are going ahead and using other which are targeted therapies such as infliximab, tocilizumab, or now cyclosporin also in this trial. But if it is in a resource limited country like ours, prednisolone, it is easily available and we know the side effects, how to monitor, we can go ahead and use prednisolone with.
Thank you.
Madam, hello.
Yes, sir.
When do you confirm that patient is resistant to IVIG?
So the resistance is defined as if you have started treatment with IVIG and after 48 hours of initiation of treatment, the child doesn't become afebrile, then it is considered to be resistance.
Okay.
Do you consider second dose of IVIG at that time?
Sir, personally, I would feel that rather than giving IVIG second dose, considering cost, everything, because first it has not acted, then I would prefer to go ahead with infliximab or methylprednisolone according to the finances available.
Dr. Rina, this looks like a study. Have you come across studies like this in the children group around 12 years or less? Because this study, what I was looking for your data, almost adolescents and adults studies are there. So is it applicable same? Can we extrapolate this to children with the Kawasaki?
Sir, this data can be extrapolated because the pathology will remain same. But for MISC, we are still thinking about what is the pathological basis. Pathological changes are different according to the whatever animal studies and animal models have been studied. More of IgA deposition and IgA plasma cells are involved in Kawasaki as compared to the MISC. So still using steroid would be much of because it's a blanket, it will cause immunosuppression at all levels. Or maybe because they are using in adults now the tofacitinib, JAK inhibitors, who also act at a higher level of cytokine pathways. So maybe because of that.
Yeah.
What Dr. Mohanty said has an important point, because we know the coronary outcome at various ages is different. Smaller the baby, more likely to be having a permanent coronary damage. Relatively bigger children have lesser chances of it. So to quote the statistics clearly, I suppose this is from the up-to-date latest document. Less than 6 months, 40% children will have a long-term coronary damage. From 6 months to 3 years, 25%. That's what we at present consider. So do you think your choice of medication will differ at various age groups? Maybe less than 6 months, 6 to 3 years, more than 3 years. Is there any difference in the choice of your management according to age groups?
Good evening. Actually, for if it is an infant or a lower age group, I would aggressively treat, as you have said, that they're going to be permanent damage chances are more, and coronary artery involvement per se is more if the age is lower, or infants, the coronary artery involvement chances are more, and the having IVIG resistance also chances are more if the age is less. So I would go aggressively in treating those children. I may use IVIG along with IVIG. I may use steroid or infliximab, whatever that situation permits. For older children, I may treat less aggressively as compared to the lower age group children. I may not use IVIG if it is not available. I may just give steroids in that case and see.
Hello.
Hope that answers the question.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi,
yes,
madam.
sir. Good evening, sir.
Are there any deaths due to acute thrombosis, dilated vessel, in your this study?
Actually, there are 3 complications of Kawasaki disease, but they have not mentioned any deaths as such. So, Kawasaki shock syndrome they have mentioned.
Not the thrombosis and dilated coronaries, acute thrombosis.
No,
Huh?
sir. No, sir. They have not mentioned.
Ida, in your study, you mentioned that recurrence rate was higher in the study group. Why it was that?
So as I told, they have used only 5 days of cyclosporine, and as per as the mechanism of any disease modifying agent, it will achieve its trough levels after some time. So they were measuring the trough levels of cyclosporine, but it should be continued for a longer time to keep that effect. So maybe because once they have removed the cyclosporine at 5 days, there must be the relapse. That's what
I'm just wondering, you are using IVIG standalone in one group and other is IVIG plus cyclosporine. So if at all, since IVIG is same in both, you should have a same recurrence rate. With the cyclosporine, why the recurrence rate is increased?
And I have not understood that, and they have not also explained it in the study. Sorry.
So can we proceed?
Yes.
हो गया ना नेहा, 3 ही है ना?
हाँ, बस.
Yes, sir.
Proceed किधर?
Proceed for vote of thanks.
इतना पढ़ाई करेंगे, इतना एक दिन में पढ़ाई करेंगे तो कंसिस्टेंट स्टडी करेंगे, काम भी करना है क्या?
Thank you, Dr. Reena ma'am, for choosing and presenting a very nice case. After such fantastic cases by all the 3 speakers and discussion with our eminent speakers, expertise, we quickly move forward. We also acknowledge presence of Dr. Shubha ma'am from Nagpur. She is from West Zone AHA. Ma'am, can we have you? Hello.
Dr. Sandeep Dankhedi is there from Amravati.
Yes.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
Namaskar Davadkar sir. Namaskar Hemant sir.
Yes. Dr. Sandeep, Dr. Shubha is, madam is speaking, then you, and then we will come to the Sadachar. Yes, Dr.
Shubha ma'am, kindly unmute.
Unmute. Madam, unmute.
So good evening, everyone. As always, excellent program, and this activity, new initiative needs to be lauded. Excellent discussion also, though I joined a little late. Very brilliant, I should say, discussions, especially with inputs from Dr. Mohite. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
madam.
you, ma'am. Dr. Sandeep, sir.
Yes, I think this is really a wonderful initiative, and I think this is going to be new normal. Like instead of only a conferences, this kind of webinar, this kind of activities, and this is going to. I think this reminds us our college days and PG days. So this was really a great initiative. I congratulate the basic idea and all the involved person who have taken efforts to really execute it. Congratulations and thank you very much for such a nice activity.
Sandeep, put your video on.
Ares. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Sandeep, sir. Thank you all for such
Thank you.
valuable comments and inputs. Now I call upon our Maha IAP Secretary, Dr. Sadachar, sir, for the closing remarks.
As per the tradition of Raigad IIP, I think they have not missed anything, and they are doing excellent academic activity, which is of very high caliber, definitely. And definitely who are attending today are definitely enriched with the latest updates regarding the MSc and its different presentations and every aspect of it, which is new to our fraternity, basically. So I personally, and I, on the behalf of my IIP also, I congratulate Raigad IIP for this very, what do you call it, down to earth and very basic activity of reading out the journals and reading out the authentic information and sharing the authentic information. And thank you very much. And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And keep on doing it. I wish them all the best for future also. Thanks.
Thank you, Sadachar, sir, for all the appreciation. Mohinty, sir, you want to say something?
I want to have a minute. Oh. Actually, I wanted to salute. I wanted to salute the speakers who with a very short time, without much warning to them, they have selected these topics and came in a nice manner, a lucid manner, to bring these things before us. It's a very, I must congratulate them personally. I will suggest some things. Well, we can also discuss separately how these sessions can be more replenished with more material. Journal club is a little different from what we think that we'll present cases and we'll have question answer. But a journal club, we should select topics which are actually relevant to us for our general day-to-day practice, particularly in the rural setup, where we are the stakeholders. Most of us are practicing pediatricians. And these topics should be also some of the topics, even not more, some advanced in pediatrics will be there, like today. But those one or two topics should be from the general practice side. For this selecting a topic, I have some little idea. There is a mnemonics called the FINER. The topic which has been published, it should be researched which is feasible. F is for feasibility. FINER, feasible. And it should be, I is for interesting. It should be interesting. N is for novel. It's something new. Nowhere published. Something novel ideas is there. We are thinking something new. We are expecting outcome measures will be something new will come, which is not known to all others. Then E should be ethically permissible. Actually, today you publish anything, they want ethics committee certificate. It should be cleared by ethics committee. This while selecting these topics, and the R is relevant to our scenario where we are working in our work stations. So these things should be kept in mind, and for that I will suggest, now we have a month time. So this is the time to give the responsibility to our fellow members. Let them hunt the journals. So what happens while selecting or choosing the topics, you are compelled to go through 4-5 the topics. By force reading ho jati hai. This is a novel process. While selecting your topic for the month, let everybody read and suggest their topic. Let them volunteer. Then we are saying we two ye topic kar lega, wo topic kar lega, it will be one-sided. Let them exert a little and suggest topics, and there is small people who can also decide about it. If somebody has not done it, we can do that. 15 days should be given to them, and after 15 days, this should suggest topics should come to us, to the Raigad Pediatric Association, and before 7 days, the topic should be allocated to individuals. So that will be more interesting. So let's go by that way. Nothing much to offer now. So very nicely discussed, question answer. Dr. Mohite and Sir has added very valuable inputs. Thanks everyone. And thanks Raigad for involving me in this program.
Thank you,
Neha.
Hello,
Neha.
One sentence.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Neha. Yes, Dr.
One sentence.
Yes,
one sentence. Huh? Chalega na?
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yes.
yes, Godega.
Journal journey is moving forward for the progress. So I have made a slogan, journal journey jai ho Raigad IIP.
Arey wah.
Journey jai ho Raigad IIP.
Over to Nilima Bhandarkar, please.
Yeah.
I think everybody is waiting for my voice now. Offering vocal thanks. I'll like to say it was a trial of journal journey to start on Doctor's Day. It was done little hurriedly. So now all the suggestions we have taken in, and so next time we will improve definitely. Central IIP represented by Dr. Basavaraj sir, Dr. Jayant Upadhyay from West Zone, Maharashtra IIP, Dr. Jayant Pandrikar sir, Sadachar and Amol Pawar sir, all have blessed this wonderful activity of ours. All other guest participants like Dr. Dhananjay Shah, Dr. Shubhada Madam, Dr.
Sandeep.
Amravati from
Sandeep
from Amravati, all have enjoyed the activity, and I think they have taken the inspiration to start it in their parts of IIP also. So the idea was good, but the most important take-home message was make it for 2 journals only, so that all can be attentive and that can be imbibed. Dr. Mohite sir, Dr. Sasane sir and Dr. Mohanty sir all have guided wonderfully on all 3 topics of the discussion. And I think what was the take-home message for me from all the 3 journals? I think first journal reading told me MISC and COVID-19, what is the difference, what is comparison, that we know what clinically is going on, and inflammatory markers help in that. The last speaker was Dr. Reena. She presented, enlightened us about the treatment of coronary involvement and IVIG with cyclosporine, IVIG without cyclosporine, and the results after that. So these 3 topics are in a way related, and so we got the information out of that. Let's keep hope that from next time onwards, we'll have it a precise activity so that more number participants will enjoy it and get the take-home messages properly. So I thank all the participants, all the Raigad IIP members. Everyone is enthusiastic, so it can be done. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Chalo, bye. Nice.
Bye.
Bye.
President good झाले का?
Madam, गेल्या का?
हेमंत सर हाँ बोला
दावडकर सर चलो बाय.
Bye.
महेश सर गेले का महेश?